In this session, we are going to talk about an incredibly popular feature of Nerdio for Azure and something many of our partners asked us to implement, white label. The idea here is that MSPs want to be able to present Nerdio for Azure with their own branding and own look and feel, both on the surface in front of their customers and even on the specific servers being deployed. We love the white label functionality because it is so core to our mission at Nerdio, empowering MSPs to build successful cloud practices in Microsoft Azure. In this video, we'll show you how to implement the white label features of Nerdio for Azure. Enjoy the session.
The next thing I want to show you is the white label functionality of Nerdio Admin Portal. So what you just saw me do, just to go back in here and do it a little slowly. So if we go to, at the top right here, we go to exit account. That's going to take me out of this individual account as an IT administrator and going to take me back to my partner admin screen where I see all of my customers. This is where I can add additional accounts. I can destroy accounts. For instance, I can go here and select destroy. I'm actually going to show you what that looks like without actually proceeding. So let's go in and see what I can do from this screen. So I can log in, which is what we've been doing. I can edit this account, and by editing this account, I will be able to change its name. I'll be able to change the mobile phone number and the password that is used to log into that account directly. I can also destroy this account. So I'm going to click there. And what this is going to do is going to go ahead and validate that it can connect to Office 365 and Azure to make sure that before it runs any of the automation that destroys the account, it is able to connect to all the systems that it needs to talk to. So it's going to take a couple minutes here, or a few seconds hopefully, to come up. And then we also have an upgrade button. So the white label functionality is at the partner admin login level. It's not within an individual NFA account, because we're going to be white labeling all of our partners, all of our customers' accounts, not just an individual one. So if we go to settings and white label, there is a big on-off button at the top. By default, it's going to be off. So it's really important to remember to turn it on, because you can make changes right here, but unless you turn it on, none of those take effect. Okay, once it's turned on, you have the following settings. You have a logo that you can reset. This is the logo that sits in the upper right here. You have a fave icon, which is the little icon that sits in the browser right up there. You can either upload it as a file or upload it from a URL where it's posted. This gives you some guidance as to the width and the size of those icons to make sure they don't get stretched or don't look funny. And then there is a reset to defaults button, which obviously brings the Nerdio icon back. Okay, now this is the section where some of the really important changes happen. So there's something in the system called the app name. So the app name is what you see over here, right? So whenever it talks about Nerdio, this is what the app name is. So if you change this to something else, it's going to change it right here and anywhere else where it's referring to Nerdio. Okay. Then it also gives you the option to change your color scheme. So you can see there's this blue for highlighted things, and then there's that lighter blue for the tint color, like that. You also have a contact phone number, which is available in many of the emails that get sent as notifications or as welcome emails for customers. You can specify a phone number that will be displayed in those email notifications. Same thing with a contact email address that is also in email notifications. Throughout the site, there is a help icon at the top that you can specify the link to the help center. So in our case, it goes to the Nerdio help center, but you can change it to some other help center that the partner may be using. Okay, then this setting is for the public domain prefix. So the way that a white labeled portal would look is by going to, so let's actually make a couple of changes. So let's change, I'm going to save this. We can restore it. So let's change this to red. Okay, just like that. We're going to save. And it's already turned on, so that works. Okay, so now, so we have this domain prefix. What does that mean? So that means that if you go to that prefix.adminportal.pro, then you are going to see your white labeled portal. So let's try that. So let's go here. And I think the prefix was, oops, I went to the wrong place. Let's try this again. Nerdio.adminportal.pro. Okay, and you can see, the only change I made was that red color over here. So now I'm in this adminportal.pro, and if I log in, I don't remember my password, but if I log in, I would basically see this, the same color scheme here, and any other changes that I made would have been visible. So I'm going to go ahead and restore this to the previous color. Save changes. Okay, so this domain prefix is important, and then this domain name, which is adminportal.pro, is also very important. That is how users or admins would log into a white label domain. So it's not their own domain name. They cannot specify their customercompany.com as the white labeled URL. It is just adminportal.pro, which if you try to do a whois lookup on it, it won't tell you that it belongs to Nerdio. It's a private registration. So it's a way to kind of abstract or obscure that Nerdio is behind this portal. And this name basically drives the first part, the host name, before the domain when you're logging in. And then finally, we have some functionality for customers, partners who use white label, where they can point their customers to a cost estimator, which we'll look at next week, or tomorrow, I should say, in the next session. And this email address is where those leads are going to be sent to. So if you publish the cost estimator on your website or provide your customers a link to it, they can go in, they can play around with the numbers, and then at the end it asks them to provide their contact information, and that information will get delivered to whatever email address is specified here. Okay, so we have app name. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is the acronym. Acronym would be listed right here, for example, right? So Nerdio is this, and then anywhere it refers to NAP, it's that. Okay, so all of those things are changeable. When you enable white label, it also goes into the account itself and makes some changes there. It changes the ADFS screen. So when you log in through the web browser into a domain that's federated, it gets redirected to the ADFS proxy server, and there is kind of a blue background with, by default, it says Nerdio and the login prompt. That name is also inherited from this white label section, which is right here. So whatever you type in here is going to be on the ADFS screen. And then when you generate IP address, when you generate RDP files, so if we were to go into the user screen and generate RDP files, then the RDP file by default is pointing at nerdio.net. But if white label is enabled, it's going to have adminportal.pro instead of nerdio.net. So turning on white label basically obscures any references to Nerdio throughout the product, and also in the ADFS and the RDS deployments as well. A couple of other things to point out at the partner admin level, again, the level where we see the accounts and we can add new accounts. There's also logging, and you see that the same logging features are here. But if we go into provisioning tasks, you will see provisioning of all the various accounts that are within this partner's purview. So if we search for our 5009, we should be able to see that there was one provisioning task that we saw within that account. So this is an aggregate view of all the provisioning tasks. Same thing about desktop logins. This is an aggregate view of all of those. So if we go back and let's say we'll look from, November to November, and, we want to narrow it down to 5,009, then we'll be able to see for that one customer. So it's convenient for a partner to not have to, jump from customer to customer. If they want to look something up quickly, they can just go into the logs and then narrow it down by the specific account that may be of interest. And then finally, the management tasks, similarly, works the same way. You can narrow it down by customer. Let's see where's my error message? Not sure why I'm not seeing that, but anyway, same thing. So you can see here I have events from various accounts, and also importantly, at this level of logging, it's also logging the users who have logged into the NAP and didn't necessarily go into a specific account, right? So you can see, if you wanted to know today, when did I log into the system, you would say, okay, everything that's Vadim and everything that has to do with the category is called, sorry, one second, the category is called NAP user management. So we have NAP user management. Where's NAP user management? There it is. All right, so if you do it like this, you can basically filter out who has been in the NAP, right? This is not necessarily an action inside of a particular account. This is just a log of who accessed the NAP. This is available at the partner level. If we wanted to see similarly, everybody that has logged in over the course of the month, we would be able to do it like this. Okay, so we see Adam's logging in, Joseph's logging in, I'm logging in, and anyone else who's doing, various tests on the system is logging into it pretty regularly.